My name is Susan Parker. I'm 82 years old. And 8 years ago, I learned something that nearly cost me my life. Not because I was seriously ill. Not because I couldn't take care of myself. But because no one ever explained what it truly means to live alone after 60. When my husband, Michael, passed away on a quiet Thursday morning, I believed I was prepared. I had our home. I had enough savings. I had my independence. At least that's what I thought. What I didn't realize was that I had never spent a single night completely alone. Not one. I went from my parents' house to a college dorm filled with roommates, and then into a marriage that lasted 47 beautiful years. There was always someone nearby. Someone to hear a noise in the middle of the night. Someone to notice if I wasn't feeling well. Someone to ask, "Are you okay?" Then one day there wasn't. And what happened afterward taught me lessons that no book, no doctor, and no retirement brochure ever mentioned. Lessons learned through fear. Through loneliness. Through moments that could have ended very differently. If sharing these experiences helps even one person stay safe, stay independent, and stay in the home they love, then every difficult lesson was worth learning. 3 months after Michael died, I had my first wake-up call. It was just after 6 in the morning. I stepped out of the shower, slipped on a wet tile, and slammed into the bathroom cabinet. The impact left me dizzy and disoriented. My cell phone was charging in the living room. Just 20 feet away. Yet in that moment it felt impossible to reach. I lay there on the cold floor for hours. No one knew. No one called. No one checked. It wasn't until nearly 2 in the afternoon that my neighbor, Linda, noticed my mail was still sitting untouched in the mailbox. She became concerned and used the spare key I'd given her years earlier. When the paramedics arrived, one of them looked at me and quietly said something I'll never forget. "A few more hours, and this could have been a very different outcome." That sentence changed everything. Because I suddenly understood a painful truth. I wasn't really living alone. I was surviving alone. And those are not the same thing. So when I returned home from the hospital, I started building systems. Simple systems. Not expensive. Not complicated. Just practical habits designed to keep me safe and independent. The first system was what I call my morning signal. Every day before 9 o'clock, I open the front curtains in my living room. My neighbor Linda can see them from her kitchen window. If the curtains aren't open by 10, she calls. If I don't answer, she comes over. That's it. 10 seconds of effort. But it means someone knows if something is wrong. If you live alone and nobody would notice your absence for an entire day, fix that immediately. It could save your life. The second lesson involved something I never expected. Memory. When Michael was alive, we quietly supported each other every day. He reminded me about appointments. I reminded him about medications. He remembered the insurance paperwork. I remembered birthdays and bills. Together we formed one reliable system. After he was gone, I discovered how much I had depended on that partnership. More than once I couldn't remember whether I'd taken my medication. I paid a utility bill twice. I forgot meals. I missed appointments. It wasn't because my mind was failing. It was because I suddenly lost my backup system. So I created a simple notebook. Every morning I write down the date, my medications, meals, appointments, and anything important that needs attention. Some people think writing things down is a sign of aging. I disagree. I think it's a sign of wisdom. Even the best memory deserves support. The third lesson came from a conversation with my daughter, Rebecca. Nearly 7 months after Michael passed away, she visited for lunch and asked a question I wasn't prepared to answer. "Mom, what was the last thing you bought for yourself just because it made you happy?" I sat there silently. Because I genuinely didn't know. Every dollar had become reserved for emergencies. home repairs, medical costs, insurance, savings. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped enjoying life and started merely maintaining it. Rebecca challenged me to set aside a small amount every month for something that brought me joy. Nothing practical. Nothing necessary. Just joy. The first thing I bought was a bouquet of fresh flowers. It sounds insignificant. But when I placed them on my kitchen table, I realized how long it had been since I'd allowed myself something beautiful. Living responsibly matters. But so does living. You are more than a list of expenses and responsibilities. You are still a human being deserving of happiness. And that's a lesson too many people forget. The sixth change I made turned out to be one of the most practical decisions of my entire life. I stopped expecting my home to fit the woman I used to be. Instead, I redesigned it for the woman I am today. For years I kept reaching into low cabinets for heavy cookware, stretching for dishes on high shelves, and struggling with kitchen tools that seemed determined to fight me every step of the way. One afternoon I asked myself a simple question. Why? Why was I making ordinary tasks harder than they needed to be? So I rearranged everything. The pots I used most moved to waist level. The dishes I reached for every day became easy to grab. I bought an electric can opener because my hands don't have the strength they once did. I placed a sturdy stool in the kitchen so I could sit while preparing meals. And perhaps most importantly, I stopped apologizing for spending money on things that improved my daily life. A quality knife. Fresh coffee. Good olive oil. Small comforts that transformed routine chores into experiences I could actually enjoy. At 82, if I'm preparing my own meals every day, I deserve to enjoy the process. Your home should support your life. It shouldn't challenge you to prove yourself every morning. The seventh lesson demanded something much harder than physical adjustments. It required honesty. The kind of honesty pride often refuses to allow. When you live alone, there isn't someone nearby noticing when you seem tired, worried, or unwell. No one automatically says, "You don't look like yourself today." You have to become that person. And for a long time, I wasn't. I ignored persistent dizziness. I blamed it on grief. I dismissed discomfort in my side. I convinced myself it would disappear. I felt pressure in my chest and told myself it was stress. Every symptom had an explanation. Every warning sign had an excuse. Until eventually I learned the truth. The dizziness was caused by medications that weren't working well together. The pain in my side turned out to be a kidney stone. The chest pressure came from anxiety severe enough to require professional help. None of it was imaginary. None of it was insignificant. Our bodies whisper before they scream. And when you live alone, ignoring those whispers can become a dangerous habit. Pay attention. You are responsible for hearing what your body is trying to tell you. The eighth habit I developed seems almost laughably simple. Yet it has become one of the most important parts of my life. Every morning at 7 o'clock, I sit outside with a cup of coffee. Same chair. Same mug. Same spot on the porch. 10 quiet minutes. No phone. No television. No distractions. Just me and the beginning of a new day. People often underestimate the power of routine. But after loss, routine becomes an anchor. When grief clouds your thoughts. When motivation disappears. When the day ahead feels uncertain. A simple ritual reminds you that life continues. That this morning matters. That you are still here. Find something small that belongs only to you. Then protect it. The ninth lesson arrived unexpectedly. I realized I needed purpose. Not entertainment. Not distraction. Purpose. And I needed to find it without depending entirely on other people. I tried community groups. I attended social gatherings. Some were wonderful. Others left me feeling lonelier than before. Eventually, I discovered something that worked for me. I began writing. Sometimes I write letters to my husband, Michael. Sometimes I write to the younger woman I once was. Sometimes I write to my children and grandchildren, even when I never intend to mail the letters. The act itself matters. The reflection. The connection. The reminder that my story is still being written. For someone else, it might be gardening, painting, photography, family history research, volunteering. The activity doesn't matter nearly as much as the meaning behind it. Life cannot be reduced to simply passing time. Meaning must be chosen. And finally, the 10th lesson. The one I still practice every single day. Ask for help before you desperately need it. That sounds obvious now. It wasn't obvious to me. For years I believed independence meant handling everything myself. What I eventually learned is that true independence often means recognizing problems early enough to address them wisely. A few years ago my water heater started making strange noises. I noticed it immediately. And then I ignored it. 4 weeks. I convinced myself it wasn't serious. I adapted. I delayed. I waited. Eventually it failed completely. 3 days without hot water. An expensive emergency repair. Stress that could have been avoided. All because I waited too long. Since then, I've changed my approach. If a light bulb needs replacing in a difficult spot, I ask for help. If something feels unusual with my health, I call my doctor. If something is too heavy, I let someone stronger carry it. And do you know what happened? Nothing terrible. My dignity remained intact. My independence remained intact. My life simply became safer. Today, I am still here. Still living in the same home. Still waking up in my own bed. Still making my own decisions. Not because I'm extraordinary. Not because life has been easy. And certainly not because I've avoided mistakes. I'm here because I built systems. Systems that protect me when I forget. Systems that support me when I'm tired. Systems that help me remain independent without pretending I'm invincible. Every morning when I open my notebook. Every morning when I sit on the porch with my coffee. Every morning when I begin another day in this home. I feel something I never expected to feel after losing Michael. Gratitude. Quiet gratitude. For the neighbors who care enough to check in. For the simple comforts that brighten ordinary days. For every lesson learned the hard way. For every challenge survived. And for every morning I get to start again. If you live alone, or if someone you love does, and you've heard even one idea today that isn't already part of your life, begin there. Don't wait. Choose one thing. One safeguard. One habit. One system. Start today. Because the truth is this. Most people don't lose their independence all at once. They lose it through problems they never prepared for. And very often, one thoughtful decision made today can prevent a crisis tomorrow. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll continue learning. I'll continue adapting. And I'll continue being grateful for every sunrise that finds me right here at home. Until next time, take care of yourself. You matter. And your life is worth protecting.